Sonya looked out from the porch of her family's treehouse home, perched high above the forest floor in a majestic Douglas fir. The lush canopy of the forest stretched out before her, a sea of green shimmering in the morning light. She nodded to her brother, Terence, who was making his way across the wooden bridge connecting their treehouse to another, nestled in a neighboring tree. The bridge creaked gently under his weight. "That smells delicious," Sonya said to her father, Ezra, as he climbed the winding wooden steps that spiraled around the enormous trunk. He carried a tray with steaming hot coffee and freshly baked cornmeal cakes, their enticing aroma filling the air. They had been cooked over the campfire on the forest floor below. Today, they planned to take more photographs, capturing the beauty of their unique home and the vibrant life within the forest. It had all begun several years ago, on a sunny spring day in the 1890s. Sonya, then a spirited 16-year-old, lifted her colorful divided skirt high as she stepped across the bustling, dusty street of San Francisco. The city was alive with people, their dark, traditional clothing forming a stark contrast to her vibrant attire. She navigated through the crowd and stepped onto the wooden walkway beside the shops. The somber expressions of the passers-by made her even more determined. With purpose, she headed straight for the fabric shop. Inside, she bypassed the bolts of drab, dark material and headed to a table at the back. There, she found a bolt of fabric adorned with emerald green leaves, large pink and red flowers, and splashes of blue. She picked lighting up with inspiration. She smiled and added some green and pink ribbons to her shopping bundle, along with a straw hat that had one side of the brim flipped upward and the other at a rakish angle downward. She envisioned the dress and matching hat she would create. She knew people would criticize her for the non-traditional design, but the thought of the cheerful colors and the fun she would have, shocking others with her playful clothing style, filled her with joy. Even the shop owner gave her a sideways glance, eyebrows raised, as she accepted the payment. Sonya left the shop, giggling to herself. Outside, she looked into the bag at the vibrant colors again, feeling a jolt of pleasure. When she got home, she saw her father taking another of his usual portrait photos of a large family. Her mouth drooped at the sight of yet another dull, traditional portrait with stiff poses and serious faces. That evening, Sonya put on another of her modern, divided skirts that fell like wide pants, a stark contrast to the billowing long dresses most women wore in the 1890s. She pinned a cluster of fabric flowers on one side of her hair, letting her locks flow freely instead of parting it in the middle and drawing it back like the local traditional women did. Her reflection in the mirror was a breath of fresh air, a vivid splash of color and individuality in a sea of conformity. She smiled at herself, excited for the changes she hoped to inspire. Then she went downstairs and sat at the dark wood table in the dining room, with its ornate drapes and elegant decor. Her father, Ezra, shook his head but couldn't help smiling at the daughter he loved. "What are you up to now, you rascal?" he asked, his voice filled with affection. Sonya's eyes sparkled with laughter. "Whatever do you mean, Papa?" she replied innocently, her tone teasing. The room was peaceful now, but they both knew that when the rest of the family arrived, chaos and tension would inevitably follow. Ellen, her mother, entered the dining room. She wore a long dark dress with a full skirt, a gray apron over it, and her hair pulled back severely into a bun. Her eyes, like buttons, showed no expression. Ezra took the bundle of mail from Ellen, and they began to open the letters and small packages. Sonya spotted a large, thick envelope. Reading the return address, she saw it was from their photographer friends who had moved north. With a letter opener, she slit the edge. A bundle of black and white photos spilled out. Sonya stared, feeling as though time had stopped. Her eyes drank in the image of a treehouse resting in the limbs of a colossal-sized fir tree next to a serene lake, where several white egrets flew over the rippling water. Her imagination supplied the colors, and Sonya saw an image akin to the fabric she had purchased earlier that day. She could almost feel the vibrant greens, the rich blues, and the vivid pinks and reds coming to life before her eyes. The vision filled her with a sense of adventure and the promise of new beginnings. Ezra noticed Sonya staring at the photo, unmoving. "Daughter, are you all right?" Ellen sighed, wondering what Sonya was up to now. Her love for her daughter was often overshadowed by her fears. Dealing with such a free spirit was exhausting. How could she mold this offspring into a socially acceptable young woman who would fit into San Francisco society? At that moment, Sonya's 3 other sisters entered the dining room, each obediently wearing ankle-length, dark, full-skirted dresses with their hair pulled into tight buns, their expressions mirroring their mothers. Sarah, Jane, and Elizabeth looked at the scene. In the dark shadows of the room, Sonya resembled an exotic flower. They could sense she was on the verge of another unconventional escapade. "What have you got?" Sarah, the oldest, acted like her mother's assistant. "Oh, leave her be," said Jane, the middle sister, who was accustomed to being the peacemaker. "What have you done now?" Elizabeth, the second youngest, secretly admired Sonya, but was afraid to show it in front of their mother's stern face. Next, the 3 brothers trooped in. "You need to work harder in school, Jeffrey. What will happen to you when you graduate?" John, the oldest brother, who was already working, felt it was his duty to steer his younger brothers, like wild horses, toward a respectable destination. Sonya, still captivated by the photos, finally looked up, her eyes alight with excitement. "Papa, Mama, look at this," she said, spreading the photos on the table. "This is where we should go. A treehouse in the forest by a lake. Imagine living there, surrounded by nature." Ellen frowned, while Ezra leaned in to examine the photos. "That's quite a dream, Sonya," he said thoughtfully. "More than a dream, Papa," Sonya replied. "It's a vision of a life filled with color, adventure, and freedom. Can't you see it?" Ellen pursed her lips, glancing at the reactions of the other children. "Sonya, you know we have responsibilities here. Your ideas are always interesting, but we must think practically." "But Mama," Sonya persisted, "practicality doesn't have to mean dullness. We can find a balance." Her siblings watched, a mix of curiosity and concern in their eyes. The dining room, with its dark wood and ornate drapes, suddenly felt stifling compared to the vibrant possibilities Sonya envisioned. Ezra looked at the photos again, then at his daughter. "Let's discuss this more after dinner," he said gently, offering a small smile. "There might be a way to make your dream a reality, or at least part of it." Sonya beamed, her heart swelling with hope. She knew it wouldn't be easy to convince everyone, but for now, she had a glimmer of possibility to hold on to. The youngest brother noticed Sonya hunched over the photo. "What's that, little sister?" Closest to her in age, they had always bonded well. The family of 9 sat in their straight-backed, dark chairs in the gloomy dining room. Sonya looked around at them and then jumped up, carrying the photo to her father. She suspected that part of his traditional mindset was to keep peace with her mother. Yet her lips curled up in a smile, sensing that beneath his exterior lurked a spirit like hers, yearning for freedom and creativity. Ezra watched his daughter approach, his curiosity piqued. He admitted to himself that he found her to be like a refreshing breeze in the often suffocating atmosphere of the lifestyle imposed by his wife. Sonya's face spread into a huge smile. Her feet danced lightly as she put the photo down in front of Ezra with a flourish. Her instincts told her the moment was right. Ezra looked at the photo and gulped. It depicted a beautiful treehouse nestled in a huge fir tree in a forest by a lake. There was a porch on the treehouse. His eyes widened. There, sitting on the treehouse porch with huge smiles, were their friends. A stairway of wide steps wound around the tree, leading to the log cabin house perched in the branches. Ezra's heart stirred at the sight, a mix of wonder and longing. "What do you think, Papa?" Sonya asked, her voice filled with hope and excitement. "Can you imagine living there?" Ezra took a deep breath. It's incredible, Sonya. But how would we manage such a move? Your mother." "Please, Ezra," Ellen interjected, her voice tight. "This is not practical." Sonya turned to her mother, her eyes pleading. "Mama, practicality doesn't mean we have to give up on beauty and adventure. We could find a way to make it work together." The room fell silent. Sarah, Jane, Elizabeth, and the 3 brothers watched the exchange, a mixture of skepticism and intrigue on their faces. Ezra cleared his throat. Perhaps we should explore this idea further. It wouldn't hurt to write to our friends and learn more about their experience. Ellen frowned, but didn't protest further. Sonya's heart leaped with joy. She knew it was just the beginning, but having her father's tentative support was a significant step forward. Then Ezra drew in a deeper breath. He saw the wooden walkway bridge leading from the first treehouse to another treehouse. Sonya leaned over her father's shoulder. "See the other one too?" "Yes, I see it, daughter." Ezra tried to shield the photo from his wife, but Ellen's sharp eyes caught sight of it. Below the photo, in big letters, were the words, "Come and visit. We would love to see you." "Have they lost their senses?" Ellen exclaimed, seeing the photo. "Will you look at that? What fun!" Terence looked entranced, and Sonya laughed. "Wouldn't that be wonderful?" She spoke impulsively, tucking the photo away and storing it in her dresser. It was forgotten for several weeks. Then one day, she took the treehouse photo out again and brought it down to the dinner table. Sonya passed the photo over to her father. A smile grew on his face, and then he surprised everyone. Sonya saw her mother's hard, disapproving stare, but a determined expression came over her father's face. Suddenly, gleeful laughter erupted from him. "I've been thinking I deserve a vacation from work. Why not? We've saved up, and our photography assistants in training are ready to handle simple, traditional portraits on their own." Sonya held her breath. "Maybe we could take a vacation and visit them. This I would like to see," Ezra said, still chuckling. Ellen's mouth formed a straight line. Her eyes were hard and cold. "I'm not going anywhere. This is nonsense." Sarah, the oldest sister, and Jane, the middle sister, chimed in. "We'll stay here with Mama." John had a job, and Jeffrey had activities he couldn't leave either. Ezra's mind worked swiftly. He could get tickets on a ship going north for himself, Terence, and Sonya. The next few days were happy and busy for Sonya, Terence, and Ezra. Ellen gave in enough to wear a patient smile, picturing herself having the ladies circle over for a formal afternoon tea in the dark dining room. Sonya took the colorful fabric she had purchased the day the photo arrived and made an outfit. When it was done, she danced joyfully around the dining room before dinner. Terence and Ezra laughed, while Ellen frowned. Ezra sent a letter to his friends, bought tickets on a ship, and got his photo assistants ready to run the studio in his absence. The day to leave arrived, and the rest of the family waved from the San Francisco docks as Ezra, Sonya, and Terence boarded the ship. Ezra felt a weight lifting as they sailed away. Sonya donned her new outfit and began learning photography. Terence started writing a journal and sketching. Back home, Ellen wrote out invitations for a formal tea party. Wearing a rare smile, she began to relax. "I would like to order some colorful flowers for a ladies' tea party," she said at the florist shop. She decided to try a few things that were less traditional, not wanting to admit to herself that the treehouse had inspired her too. Later that day, Ellen stepped in to watch the assistant photographers do the family portraits in the studio. "Here, let's add these fresh flowers. And you don't all need to stand in a line. Why don't you just cluster around like you are having a conversation?" The assistants tried her ideas, and the families liked the less formal, less traditional photos. Ellen admitted to herself that maybe she had been too rigid in the past. She began to imagine a time when there would be another trip to the wilderness treehouse. Maybe she would go too. Out on the ocean waves, Ezra, Sonya, and Terence set up the photo equipment that Ezra had brought and turned one of their rooms into a photo processing studio. This led to other passengers requesting photo portraits. Sonya wore her green and pink wide pants and her colorful hat. Passengers spoke amongst themselves. "Where is she from? I love her outfit." Terence scribbled fast in his leather journal, and other passengers decided to write journals too. The trio became the center of attention on the ship, with Ezra giving impromptu photography spirit of whimsy and playfulness developed at the photo studio on the ship. Traditional photos? Not today. We're doing experimental portraits. Would you like to try something different? Ezra found that people liked the idea. On the deck, Ezra took photos of the crew climbing the rigging, of the distant shores, and of the captain at the wheelhouse. When they docked in the port of a large bay, Ezra took some of the new photos to the post office and mailed them to Ellen. When Ellen received the photos, she took them to the newspaper and sold them for a good sum of money. The photos were popular, and the newspaper asked for more. Ellen sent a letter with a copy of the newspaper to the port nearest the treehouse family, knowing Ezra said he would check for mail there. The day came when Ezra, Sonya, and Terence disembarked at the port near their friends. The width and height of the fir trees surprised them, even though they had seen photos. Ezra said, "These must be among the largest trees in the world." Their friends met them at the rustic wharf with a farm wagon pulled by 4 horses. The spring weather was cool, and the trees were emerald green, with drops of dew glistening. Sonya saw giant pink and red flowers, as large as dinner plates, growing on shrubs as tall as houses. They rode with their friends through the forest. Then the treehouse came into view. Sonya, Ezra, and Terence would never forget that moment. It changed them forever. The treehouse was even more magnificent in person. Nestled high in the massive fir tree, it looked like a fantasy brought to life. A wooden walkway bridge connected it to another treehouse, and there were The treehouse had a big porch wrapping around it. They walked up the wooden stairs that wound around the massive tree trunk. Overhead, the Douglas Fir canopy sheltered the treehouse from rain, and the trees around it blocked the wind. The wooden bridge led to additional treehouse rooms. Sonya wandered from one to the next, looking down at the forest floor with wide-eyed wonder. When it rains, the ground floods, but we sit outside on the porch under the fir boughs and drink our morning coffee, said Ezra's friend, his voice warm with contentment. Comfy beds were ready, adorned with soft blankets, and a meal was cooked on the forest floor over a rock-rimmed campfire. The aroma of the food mingled with the fresh forest air, making it feel like a perfect escape from the ordinary. Back in San Francisco, Ellen received the new batch of photos: the treehouse, lakes, rivers, dunes, and beaches. She took them to the newspaper and received another large check. Ellen sent the check to Ezra. When he went into the little village on the river and returned to the treehouse, he brought news of a new parcel of land he had purchased nearby. He didn't explicitly mention his plans to build another treehouse, but Ellen knew exactly what was coming. She reflected on when she first met Ezra. Back then, they had dreams and a love for being playful and lighthearted. Over the years, work had overtaken their lives, and their sense of creativity and whimsy had faded. Determined to rekindle that spirit, Ellen sent a letter north. "We're coming up there. I bought the tickets already. See you soon." As Ellen prepared for the journey, she felt a renewed sense of excitement. The trip promised not just a reunion, but a chance to rediscover the joy and creativity that had once defined their lives. She laughed as she sent the letter, imagining how surprised Ezra would be. On the ship traveling up the coast, Ellen and her children kept looking at the photos of the treehouse, their excitement palpable. When their ship docked, Ezra, Sonya, and Terence met Ellen and the rest of the family at the wharf. They all rode in their friend's wagon out to the treehouse and then to Ezra's new property. Ellen was wide-eyed with amazement. Ezra watched her closely, noting the change in her demeanor. She was a transformed woman. "We're never leaving. We are spending the rest of our lives here," Ellen declared, her voice filled with resolve and joy. The words were echoed by everyone. "We love it here." "Take some more pictures," Ellen said, her eyes alight with enthusiasm. Ezra grinned. "The newspaper requested them. This is earning a good income. The assistants can handle the San Francisco studio. We'll stay here and take a ship down south once in a while to check on things." Photos of their family in the new treehouse they built were printed by the San Francisco newspapers. Some people rolled their eyes, but others envied the joyful family climbing the steps to their light-filled home. As time passed, changes continued to unfold. Ezra explored innovative photography techniques. Sonya designed artistic creations, while Terence wrote fiction stories that newspapers and magazines eagerly published. Ellen began planning whimsical parties and events, injecting creativity and fun into every gathering. Sonya's brothers built fascinating furniture from branches, willow reeds, and driftwood. One day, the entire family came together to carve huge statues of animals and marine life in a fantastical style. The statues were transported to the village in a wagon and sold. The village used them as outdoor art pieces for the town square. Several family members took up painting, creating vibrant murals of whales, clipper ships, and marine life for the walls of the tiny nearby village. The family became known for their non-traditional ways in clothing. Their joyful faces, lively gestures, and unique style spread happiness and inspiration. Their laughter echoed through the forest, blending with the breezes and the songs of birds. Their home, nestled among the giants of the forest, became a beacon of creativity and joy, touching everyone who encountered it.